Good evening, everybody, and thank you for coming tonight. I am Carrie Simison-Bitts, the General Manager and Associate Publisher of the Colorado Springs Independent. We are glad you are here spending your time learning about what this year's City Council candidates stand for. This year we have 24 candidates vying for 6 seats in 6 districts. The Independent is proud to continue to partner with Citizens Project and all of their other partners to put on these voter education events, debates, and candidate forums. It's so important to be knowledgeable about the candidates and their stances before we vote. This is our backyard and our home and our lives. We thank each of them for taking the time to talk with us, their constituents, so we can make informed voting decisions. As you always hear in those public service announcements, the more you know, and it really is true. Tomorrow's Independent also features Citizens Project's voting guide, where all but 2 candidates sent in their responses. It also features the Independent's endorsements, and we encourage you to look to the Independent or to your trusted media source for additional information about the candidates. With that, it's my distinct honor to introduce a woman who I have the utmost respect for, Christy Milligan, Executive Director of Citizens Project.
I'm not quite as tall as Carrie. I'm Christy Milligan. I'm the director of Citizens Project. And Citizens Project, for those of you who are not familiar with us, educates and empowers people to promote and protect diversity, equality, religious freedom, and civic engagement. Tonight, it's my pleasure to thank you all for being here, to remind you that if you have questions or if you'd like to tweet your opinions, the hashtag for that is at the bottom of the screen, COS Debate. I'd like to thank our presenting sponsors, The Independent, Stargazers, Fox 21. I'd also like to thank our media panelists from KRCC, the Colorado Springs Business Journal, and Fox 21. And issue a special thanks to Trace at RockyMountainStreams, who is live streaming this on our website and his right now. Our presenting co-sponsors include the League of Women Voters of the Pikes Peak region, the Pikes Peak Equality Coalition, and KONO. And additional sponsors include Artemis Women, Center for Nonprofit Excellence, Colorado Common Cause, First Congregational Church, and One Colorado. All of these groups are very committed to making sure that voters have the information and the resources they need to make their voice heard at the ballot box. As part of our ongoing commitment to civic engagement, transparency, and accountability, we have hosted these election forums for 21 years. This year's municipal election is especially important because in 2011, we as a community voted to shift from 4 council districts and 5 at-large council members to 6 council districts and 3 at-large members. The rate of candidates running for these districts, the 6 districts, is unprecedented, and we're really delighted that you'll be able to meet most of them tonight. 2 of the districts, District 4 and District 6, do not have incumbents, so all of the candidates in those 2 districts are new. One thing that we're not doing tonight that we sometimes do is issues. And the reason we're not doing issues tonight is because our partners and friends at the League of Women Voters of the Pikes Peak region are hosting an issue forum this Saturday, March 16th, from 9:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. at McHugh Commons at Colorado College. And there are information pamphlets on your tables. For those of you who are familiar with our forums, we have, again, adapted our program to better meet your needs and also to better honor the time of our candidates and our media panel. We will feature each council district for a half an hour to allow you to come for your district and leave when it's over, although we do encourage you to stay for all of them. Each district will be assigned a dedicated media panelist who has prepared specific questions for that district. We scheduled the races with no incumbents first, with hopes that current council members will be able to get here immediately following the council meeting today. We'll kick off tonight with Ralph Roughton of the Colorado Springs Business Journal and the Colorado Springs Independent in District 4, and we'll move on to District 6 at 6 p.m. and so on. The first 15 minutes of each section will be those media panelists, and the second 15 minutes of each section will be your questions, whether you are asking them on the slips of paper provided on your table or tweeting them. We do ask that you turn your cell phones down but not off, and feel free to submit questions in that way. And without further ado, I'm pleased to invite our moderator, Joe Cole, up to the stage, and he will invite Ralph and our District 4 candidates so we can commence this evening's event. Thank you.
Thank you, Christy. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm sure this will ebb and flow with people that will show up for different districts, and we're glad for those of you that are here and plan to stay the whole evening. It'll be a lot of fun. All right, first we'll call our District 4 candidates up, Dennis Moore and Gary Flakes. If both of you could come up and take your spots at the table. And then if you could also flip up your name tags so everybody can see who is who. Now, candidates, I do want to remind you quickly, there is a timekeeper. It'll be right here. Each response, we're trying to keep limited to 1 minute. So know that when you're asked the question, you have a minute to respond. You will get warnings. You will get a 30-second warning, and then you will get a 10-second warning, and then you'll get the dreaded please stop talking card. And at this time, by the way, if you start to think of questions, feel free to fill those out on the sheets, and we will come by and pick those up. And the second 15 minutes, we will ask those questions, again, provided by you, the audience. At this time, it is my pleasure to introduce our first media panelist who will come up here and ask you guys some questions. It is Ralph Routon with the Colorado Springs Independent.
We'll jump right into it with, even though it was just said that we're not going to deal specifically with the 2 ballot issues, I think in a lot of cases the voters want to know where you stand on those ballot issues, since everybody in the city is going to be voting on them. So let's start with the council pay issue. How do you plan to vote, if you haven't already, on the council pay issue, and why? Dennis, you want to go first?
Well, I'm looking at the council pay and looking at our past city council members, and I think it's probably a good idea, but I always go with the citizens say and support it. But myself, I think it's a good idea, because otherwise you get a lot of people who have a lot of money and can afford to, or got a business, they could get out there and do it. So we get the same group of people that really don't know what it's like living, especially in District 4, you know, and people have a lesser income, or you got someone who's got someone to support them. So I'm voting yes. I did vote yes on it myself, because it's not for me, but hopefully those that come behind me.
Gary?
Well, I support the pay raise for City Council. I believe that we should view it and look at it as an investment and not necessarily an expense. I think it'll attract a younger generation, which is what we need down at City Council right now. I work with a lot of nonprofits, and one of the things that we constantly see is that there are a lot of older members that's retired. And so a lot of nonprofits are always asking, how can we get the younger crowds in here? How can we get and attract younger members? Well, some of the younger generations are still out there having to work. They're still brand new to raising a family and things like that. And I think that you have to have younger people at the table. And if we want to attract the younger and more innovative city council members and make it feasible for younger generations to run, we should increase that pay, and not just sort of be just with people that's retired or who already are wealthy or well off to do.
I think I should at least mention that there are 2 other candidates in District 4, Helen Collins as well as Deborah Hendricks, and I don't believe Helen has appeared at any of the forums, but I know that Deborah Hendricks had conflicts and was unable to make it. The second ballot issue regards trails and open space maintenance funding, and would like to, again, as with the council issue, how did you vote, or how do you plan to vote, and why? Gary, you can go first this time.
Well, I definitely plan on supporting it. I think that our trails and open space is necessary again. Studies have shown that the younger generations now are attracted to areas where there are bike lanes, there are greenways, and if we want to attract major companies here, then we have to make sure that we have the talent. In addition to that, I support it because our younger generations also need our parks maintained, and also our older generations. And it's a part of economic gardening, making sure that we have good parks and recreations.
Dennis?
Well, I applaud the TOPS for working with the master plan. And because it's part of the master plan, I support that purchase. But like many, I do have some concerns about the maintenance of existing parks, trails, and open spaces going forward, and would like to be part of the discussion and the planning when elected to City Council, since I have not been fully engulfed in that project up to now.
This next question applies more to your district, and I realize it's not something that was caused by City Council, but something that's happened in the last couple of years is that the Pikes Peak Workforce Center was taken away from, East Pikes Peak, well, just right across the way here, and moved out to Garden of the Gods Road, a lot further away and a lot tougher to reach for many of the people who need to use it. I was just wondering how you both feel about this and what might you do to address that and minimize the inconvenience for people moving forward. You go first, Dennis.
Well, especially for the people in the Southeast who don't have all the greatest transportation in the world, I think it was terrible on one hand because they need to have the access. Since we don't have no decent bus routes for them to get to where they got to go. I know one lady only get $800 a month, and sometimes it costs her $7 or $8 a day, and almost a whole day trip to make a trip to where she needs to go. So I think it's terrible. We need some better transportation routes and means for people to get there. It's just too far away, especially from the Southeast, the area that needs us the most.
Gary?
Pikes Peak Workforce Center used to be located right there off of Circle and Airport. And I know that we have a satellite office out in Fountain also. So if we could, maybe create a satellite office, or if we can, maybe have a nonprofit organization or another community leader who will want to position themselves and be a resource for people right there on the southeast side of Colorado Springs, I think that that would be good also, because I think that our city also should work with nonprofits and also private enterprises to make our city run more efficient. So that would be my suggestion. Let's bring a satellite office somewhere on the southeast side of Colorado Springs.
Okay. Next question. What particular issue that applies more to District 4 than any other area perhaps in the city do you think is being ignored by the rest of the city, and what might you do to make people more aware of the problem and how to solve it? Gary, you go first.
Definitely employment. Southeast side of Colorado Springs is definitely one of the underserved portion of Colorado Springs. I think that if you look at my flyer, I have some of the major job industries here, which is things like aerospace, technology, homeland security, biotechnology, customer service operations, data network, and information technology. And when we look at the southeast side of Colorado Springs, we have to ask ourselves, does the people on the southeast side of Colorado Springs have the skill sets in order to be able to fill those jobs? And so again, this is a combination of us being able to work with the Pikes Peak Workforce Center, figure out where the gaps are at in the skill sets, create programs, get people within those programs to be able to get the necessary skill sets so they can fill those particular job positions. And so as a community organizer and as an individual that outreach to the community, I would definitely be a resource for the people on the southeast side of Colorado Springs, as I already am. And I will continue to be.
Dennis?
Well, after we walk around talking to a lot of businesses here in the past week or two, it's economics down there. There's no transportation, can't get workers, a lot of buildings closed, just like the southeast side has been left behind. We've been talking for over 3 years, 3.5 years, about the Academy Improvement Zone, and we haven't done anything about that. We have a crime that people, I know one lady owned a shop was, scared to try to get to home in the evenings. Another shop, they had a lot of break-ins right near them. So crime, economic improvement is a very big need in the Southeast. Transportation tied to that is extremely, very important need. They're not separate, they go hand in hand. Crime, safety, jobs, it's all part of fixing it, and there's no one single thought to this.
You just made a little reference there to South Academy, and obviously another issue that pertains to your part of the city is the South Academy redevelopment issue. I realize that one council member can't, totally be in control of where that process goes forward, but what do you think the city needs to do as soon as possible to get this out of neutral and get it into gear? Starting with you, Dan.
We don't have that much time. And everybody want to pin it down to one thing. There's a combination of things. I've been involved in academy development when I had to get a bunch of neighborhood watch people together and all the different people in the Southeast to talk about that. We got that. The crime issue is going to require someone working with all the districts trying to make vast improvements, and not to forget the Southeast, because there's 1991 when I got here that has not been completed. The similar projects has been completed all the way up to the north, but we got left out behind. So I just don't understand. So we need to, whoever gets in charge in the Southeast needs to help try to get other people looking at those efforts, especially in economic development down there, urban renewal, and all these things.
Gary?
I think the solution is building a coalition. I think that we have to, definitely have discussions with other council members, and at the same time, I think the Southern Business Alliance should also connect with the Black Chamber. I think we should bring the Hispanic Chamber back also, and any other chamber and business owners, and figure out how it is that we can address that issue, create a map with action steps, and then let's start taking action steps to make sure that we can improve the Southeast Corridor.
Okay. Next question. Obviously, there is the council pay issue on the ballot, but that wouldn't take effect for 2 more years. So even if it were to pass the next 2 years, everyone on council will be making $6,250 a year. We know that, everybody has their own other commitments, but how many hours a week would you plan to spend in serving on city council if you were to be elected? Gary, you're first.
Well, I hear city council right now is a 40-hour-a-week job. So me and my family, we definitely have already planned for a full-time job for me at city council.
Well, since I already volunteer with the police department, do almost 1,000 hours a year, so it wouldn't make no difference if I'm doing it there or at the police department or there. And after 40-plus years with the military, working anywhere from 40 to 60 hours a week, it's just another day at the office. It's not a big problem.
Okay. Obviously, stormwater is a big issue these days. It seems like that there's a lot more awareness of stormwater-related problems in other parts of the city, not so much in District 4. What do you think you need to do to help people realize that you have problems as well in District 4, and how would you, how do you think those need to be prioritized?
I don't know how about prioritized, but if they don't know there's a problem down along Sand Creek and Deerfield Hills, Fountain and Shelton, we get flooded every now and then. They so-called try to fix it up there near where I live at Airport and Circle. It gets a little bit fun. So we've always had a problem. It's just like you almost just mentioned, nobody else thinks about the Southeast and the fact we've got problems down there. And it needs to be brought up clear and loudly. There's problems as much there as there anywhere else, and we need to take care of them. And we need to get them in the mix of getting it fixed.
Gary?
I guess I would speak to the prioritizing piece, and that is that we know that there's almost $1 billion right now in backlog or whatever. And I think the next steps would be is to figure out exactly which projects would take priority. once we figure out which projects will take priority, then we can set a budget to figure out, okay, we need to knock this project out and on to the next one. And as far as how do we explain it on the southeast side, I think that any problem that affects the city affects the budget. And so if there isn't enough funds or anything like that, that can cut services, again, the bus services. And so we definitely have to work together as a city as a whole.
Okay. Joe, you about ready to come in with the audience?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you, Ralph. All right, gentlemen, I have 2 questions here from the audience. The first one is to both of you. Do you support retail sale of marijuana? If not, how do you justify foregoing the economic value of retail marijuana when considering employment, taxation, regulated and known producers and products, and the potential for establishing a marijuana and hemp industry?
As I mentioned to the candidates, folks who now are supporting me, I did vote no on it, but I'm old military. The voters said we want it, okay? And now my job, I figured if I get on city council, how do we make it work to benefit and make sure children are not harmed, and we do control it and manage it properly. So I'm old military. The voters said yes, we want it, even though I won't use it. I never have used it, too many years in the military, but I want to make it work because that's what citizens want.
I too would support retail sale of marijuana within our city. You know, the citizens have spoken. I think that we should have responsible regulation, and also that also can be funding for our education system. And when we talk about a lack of funding and different things like that, then there's a stream of income for funding our education also to put back into the schools. So yes, I will support Amendment 64 as a retail operation.
All right, I've got another question for both of you. I had 2 submitted here on the topic of fracking, so I will ask one, and that should satisfy both. Your position on fracking, how you arrived at that position.
Fracking, that's definitely a tough issue there. We just got a piece right here, again, 51 of Springs residents oppose fracking. I think it's definitely a tough issue because I think about the job creation. I just saw some things as far as a lot of the different companies bring people from out of different states, you know, to employ and different things like that. So one of the things I would like to know is the companies that's come in here, who would be the major people within the major positions within the company, and also I think that there are health issues there that we definitely need to address, and also property issues. And so right now I'm leaning towards, you know, not really having fracking here.
There is so much, I've been looking up this stuff, misinformation on both sides. The jobs we need our educational system to help get people prepared for employment if it is coming here. But I need to get some more information. What I did for 40 years in the military was based on facts. I got to separate all this information that I have been inundated with to see what's what. Right now, we definitely need the jobs. I know we need the jobs desperately, so I'm leaning that way until I get more information.
All right, due to the time, we have 2 minutes, so this will be the last question from the audience. What is your position on the Colorado Springs utilities? I'm guessing they're asking City Council's role as a board.
I believe it should stay with the City Council, but that's a wide open question because there's so many different ends of that. Some people want to sell it, some want to lease it, some want to do whatever. I've been on the tours, I've seen it, I evaluated like I would normally do in a military operation, and right now I'm inclined that we don't sell it. It's very valuable to the city, especially in the form of the lowest utilities in the state. Other than that, just mainly the board stay with the City Council. Having a separate board, I don't think it serves purpose, and the citizen has a direct connection to the City Council member. To the board that's just been pointed to something, I'm not sure they have that same contact.
I would support any model that keep rates low for our ratepayers, and also to attract different companies here because of our low utilities. And with that said, understanding the history of Colorado Springs utilities and that in the 20s, the citizens of Colorado Springs purchased it to keep it under local control, and understanding that the way that it's set up is that even when we sell some of our gas and things to other states, that we take those profits and we bring them back in and send it out to our ratepayers, which in turn make rates low. And if we had a for-profit model set up, you know, I'm not sure if, you know, those profits will go back out to the ratepayers. And so the way that I look at it and the way that I see the current model is that it keeps rates low for our ratepayers, and it also attracts companies here because of our low utilities rates. So as of right now, I'm in support of local control, so, and with city council, so thank you.
All right, gentlemen, it's 6 o'clock. My job is to keep this on time, so thank you for your time. You guys did a wonderful job. And at this time, District 4, you guys are excused.
And I have flyers on the table, and I appreciate any support for any residents that's in District 4. Thank you.
All right, at this time, we're going to start District 6. So if those candidates will come on up. David Moore, Ed Burcham, and Andreas Pico. All right, as we did with District 4, the first 15 minutes will actually fall in the hands of Colorado Springs Independent, Ralph Routon.
I think we realized something there that we perhaps should have done with the two candidates in District 4, and might as well go ahead now and go ahead and let each one of you make a short opening statement, and unless you would rather do a closing statement, but I was just thinking we'd do an opening statement and then head into questions. You want to go to questions? You've had enough of opening statements? Okay. Well, as we did with District 4, the fact that you know, everybody's ballot is going to have two questions on it, the two ballot issues that were put forth by City Council. So everyone has an interest in those two. So the first question is, we'll take the council pay issue. How did you vote? How do you feel on the city? Or if you haven't voted yet, how do you plan to vote on the city council pay issue, and why? Start with Andy.
Well, I haven't filled it out yet, I'll admit that. But the whole issue on the council pay, a pay increase is probably appropriate, but not what they have on the ballot. It should be something more along the line of a cost of living. Since the last time it was adjusted, would be somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 grand, not 48 grand. It's kind of an arbitrary thing that they did. It's poor policy. They've got a lot of issues out there right now, people wanting to break part of the responsibilities off and perhaps change the scope of the council, have a separate utilities board. You know, and fundamentally you should decide what you want the council to do before you decide how much you're going to pay them. And that's kind of fundamental. So it's a bad policy, it's a bad amendment or proposal. So at this point I'm planning not to vote for it.
David Moore.
Thank you very much. I was at a city council meeting yesterday, and they're going to give our firefighters and policemen a raise. of, I think, about 3.8%, something like that for the policemen. But before they gave them a raise, they worked it out in the budget last year. But here you are faced with a raise for the city council without a way to pay for it. And I find that problematic, okay? Let's figure out whether we can afford the raise before we give them $48,000 per year. I think this spending without a way to pay for it is one of the main reasons why I decided to run for city council. I think that we deserve better. Thank you.
Ed Burcham.
Can you hear me out there? Yeah, I'm strongly opposed to it. If you've received a mailer from me in my district, I'm strongly opposed to a 668% pay increase. The incumbents on city council that voted for this has set us in a position where when the new council gets sworn in, the hostility, I think, towards the newly elected council will be something that should have been avoided. I strongly oppose the massive increase in a time like this. That's going to cost the city taxpayers almost $400,000, and I'm absolutely opposed to from $6,250 to $48,000. That's beyond my pay scale.
The other issue regarding trails and open space, parks maintenance, parks money all going to parks maintenance. This time we'll come back the other way. Start with Ed, please.
Yes, well, I mean, obviously, we approved of the TOPS program for 12 more years. That's going to bring in a lot of money, several million dollars. It's nice to have these nice parks, but we got beautiful mountains. And we can't support, I don't think, continually buying up more parkland when we can't maintain what we've got. So I'm in favor of that issue. I think it'll pass. At least that's my prediction. Call me after the election if I'm wrong.
David Moore.
Yes, if you look at that amendment, the first three words of that amendment, it says, without raising taxes. That's something that they can't tell you as far as the city council raise. They can't tell you without raising taxes. So I do agree with this amendment. The first one is really there to help us maintain the parks that we already have. And again, it's without raising taxes. That's music to my ears.
Andy?
I think it's a good proposal. I support it. The whole idea of the TOPS is to acquire the open space, and then there's provisions in there to provide some maintenance. But there's a problematic point in there, is that when you buy land for open space, you take it off the tax rolls, so the property taxes go down, and then you add to the inventory that you have to maintain. So I think increasing the maintenance level through the TOPS funds to at least pay for the properties that TOPS buys is pretty essential. Otherwise, you're just adding to the load on top of the city, on top of the rest of the budget. So vote yes for that one.
Next question. Although the issue of oil and gas regulation, in particular fracking, has been something that the whole city has taken an interest in, obviously a little more interest out in District 6 because of your proximity to where drilling still may or may not take place. I'm curious to know, how you feel about what the city has done or not done so far, and whether you think that Ultra Petroleum's departure from the scene here, as far as further exploration in the short term, do you think that that should affect the process at all? David, we'll start with you.
Yes, I think it would definitely affect the process. It's going to delay it. Hopefully we do find some oil here. It's going to provide a lot of jobs, a lot of high-paying jobs. And my main concern is my constituents who are unemployed, almost double-digit unemployment. And that's my concern. That is a good way for someone to have a high-paying job. With the oil and gas, the estimate is 2,000 new jobs with an average of $109,000 a year as a salary. And I believe that it is very important to our community that we have those type of jobs. The delay that Ultra has done, it's unavoidable, but hopefully we can find gas. They still, oil. They still have 2 wells there, so hopefully we can find it. Unfortunately, our city council right now is put it off again, so it'll be on us. Thank you.
Ed, next.
Yes, well, I'm in favor of it. It's been proven safe with the regulations. It works in other cities. But I just heard, I think today, someone can confirm this to the news media, but City Council voted against it today. I don't know what that was all about, but so it may be a moot point. I want to support the mayor trying to find 6,000 jobs. Banning Lewis Ranch has always been a problem going back to Frank Airy's days. He even got the better of Mayor Isaac, and that was tough to do. So I would have liked to have had the jobs. It would have helped, high-paying jobs in the private sector. We've got very high unemployment. I think it would have been good. It would have been well regulated, and it's proven that it is safe to do it.
Andy?
I've been strongly in favor of fracking, or hydraulic fracturing to put it more accurately. There's a lot of misinformation going on about that. In fact, the flyer that's floating around here this evening has got this nice picture of, massive number of oil wells out there, and hydraulic fracturing takes that away. It gives you the ability to put one well or one site and then drill horizontally to cover the entire field, rather than the type of picture that's floating around there that they falsely attribute to fracking. It's been proven safe. You go down there, they drill a mile beneath the water table, and then they frack underneath a mile of solid rock. And the EPA itself has said they've been able to validate not a single case of contamination of water supply. So I'm all in favor of it. I think it's disappointing that the well has so far come up dry, and I think it's disappointing that City Council voted it down.
Okay. Next question. I guess it's an assumption, at least, that the further away you get from downtown, maybe the more concern there is in the further out areas, anyway, about emergency service and the city's plan now to break away from the contract regarding emergency ambulance service. Wondering what your stand is on that, and would you propose anything different? Start with Andy.
Well, I was surprised by the fact that the city moved out of it. The general trend has been to try to find cooperative arrangements with the county and other agencies out there to combine services. But as far as I understand it, what they really want to do is they want to manage the contract themselves and let the other people come on board. So in theory, there should not be an impact on services, but we'll have to see. In District 6, we're still part of the city the last time I checked, so I'm hoping they continue to provide this sort of services out there. And as well, cooperative arrangements with the county to keep that same service, same level of service going. So it's really, I think, an internal argument about who manages the contract more than impact on service, but we'll see. I'd like to keep the service right where it is.
David Moore.
Well, I think the city is doing this due diligence to look for a better deal. Why pay the same thing over and over again, and we can maybe get a better deal? Maybe with the same provider, we don't know. But to not look for a better deal, I think that's just foolish. So just to do your due diligence, let's look for a better deal, see if we can find some better ways in which to help our constituents in District 6. And so I'm all for trying to find a better way in which to serve the citizens of District 6. Thank you.
Ed?
There's an old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Recently, I had an employee have a breakdown. We thought he had a heart attack, and it was a stroke. They were there at our place in 5 minutes. I can see where the city may want to take a bid or put out an RFP, but from what I've heard, their service has been incredible. There's been no complaints. Not sure what they're going to come up with or who else could do this, but they've done a great job for years, and I would say, again, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Leave it alone. They're doing a great job.
Okay. Next question is in regard to transit. District 6, that area out there took a pretty good hit with the cutbacks in bus service. As service is now coming back and hours being added next month for most of the existing routes. Do you feel like that the city should make it a priority to restore service to some of the routes that were taken away and give more equal bus service to districts like yours and other, like up further north as well? Start with Ed.
Well, we're in a very conservative, fiscal conservative area out in District 6. It's the north part of town. I'm sure you know where it is by looking at the map. It hasn't been an issue for people in my district. But I was at a Hillside community meeting the other day, and I felt bad. Out of 50 people, only 4 were gainfully employed. They wanted transportation. We should have some surplus buses now from Wasson. I would think about we should farm that out maybe to people like Silver Key, or having somebody occupy those buses. The problem is those big buses run, the windows are black and you can't find who's in the buses. I think we should go to smaller buses, and I feel bad for those people that can't get to their jobs. Only 5 of the people at Hillside the other day were gainfully employed, and I felt real bad about it. But it's not an issue in my district.
Okay.
Well, I believe it is an issue. When they were doing the budget for 2013, they did an analysis of how much it would cost to run bus services in District 6. It would cost about $750,000, $750,000. And so I make it my duty, if elected, to find that $750,000 in the budget so we can expand bus services to District 6. We pay taxes for bus services, so why shouldn't we have bus services? You know, that's taxation without representation, right? So that's what I'm going to do. I will make it my every effort to find that $750,000 so we can have bus services in District 6. Thank you.
Andy?
Well, transportation out there is certainly an issue. We've only got, 2 routes that just barely touch the district. I think we need to be able to do a lot more for it. There are some people who rely on that, particularly those with disabilities. But I think there's different ways we can approach that issue. We can enter into cooperative arrangements perhaps with some of the other charitable organizations such as Silver Key and some of the other nonprofit agencies, and somehow take the money that we do have and make it go a little bit further. And we need to tailor it more to the needs of the people that would actually use it. Coming up with buses, for example, that'll handle wheelchairs and so forth, instead of the huge buses that right now travel 90% empty. I think there are different things we can do. We'll have to take a close look at it. And the challenge will be, as my esteemed opponent has pointed out, trying to find the money to do that. Thanks.
I'm going to ask one more question, and then Joe will come up with questions from the audience. This one is more of a general question, but would you support an effort to modify Tabor and eliminate the ratchet down portions, yet maintain voter approval on all tax and debt measures? Andy?
Well, I don't like the ratchet effect that's built in there. I think it's a failing within Tabor. It was designed by a lawyer, not an economist, is kind of how I look at it. But it is effective. There's no question about it. And the override for it is simply the vote. So while I don't like that particular measure, the whole thing itself, you can override it. We just take it to the people and say, can we keep this additional funds? And if you say yes, you say yes. If you say no, you say no. And in the process of asking you that, it's our responsibility to point out precisely what we would use that money for if we were going to do that, and put it on there and essentially make it work like a bond issue, but we're going to ask you if we can keep that additional fund. So I don't see any reason necessarily to change Tabor at this point. It does work. It does keep the spending down, and it forces us on council to approach you and tell you precisely what we're going to do with that if we ask for that additional money.
David Moore?
Well, I believe in Tabor. I've been to city council all this last year, and let me tell you, without Tabor, you guys will be paying a lot more for a lot less.